city of Mobile. I'm thinking of retiring here in Baldwin County. There's an issue I want to address with you. It has to do with the fact of how inmate funding is being done. They're charging inmates in some cases monies to be housed at the jail. It's creating what I would consider debtors' prisons or indentured servitude. Are you familiar with indentured servitude, Chairman?
Yes, sir. I do not have a legal definition, but I've read from history. Thank you.
Okay, good. For those who do not know, indentured servitude is when someone owes money or is sent to a debtor's prison where they're continually jailed for being broke. Most of the people in jail are already poor. By charging them funds or charging them monies for being incarcerated, they're creating cycles of poverty for the poorest people in this community. I'll give you a little background on myself and what I'm doing here. I am an accountant. I used to work for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I also am a reporter for independent media, and I have a website called Mobile Audit Club, where I contribute to it that explains the work that I'm engaged in. Like I said, the reason I'm here, I want to retire in Baldwin County, but you've got this debtor's prison and indentured servitude. And what I want to do is move to have a law or a vote to stop the charging of inmates for the time that they're incarcerated, because I do not believe it solves any problems any more than indentured servitude or debtor's prisons. I believe there's alternate sources of funding to house the inmates. I was involved over in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm currently not allowed in there in violation of their open meetings law. I really want to thank you for standing and holding to the open meetings law, because it is a law. Sheriff Jack Tillman in Mobile, Alabama, who was ousted this year, was taking inmate food funds in 2001. They did not have any controls on their accounts at their jail.
Yes, sir. May I say, not to interrupt you, but we're in Baldwin County. If you would.
Yeah, the reason I'm getting to this, I saw you bring in a new sheriff, and I know that someone, I believe the last meeting, Councilman, you told me that the sheriff controls. You might have more information on this. The reason I brought that up is because if you make sure you have controls on your account in your sheriff's department, they might not have to charge the inmates funds for this. The accountability in government is very important. And if you don't have that, you have collusion and you have no controls in the accounts, which is what Mobile had. I noticed other things about the county. They charge people money for various things. It's supposedly a very wealthy county. Probably the biggest problem that I noticed in Mobile was there was collusion and lack of controls on their accounts. There's plenty of funding available. And one of the issues here that I've noticed already in Baldwin County is that the treasurer is not elected. He's appointed by the county commission. Am I right on that?
Clerk treasurer of the county is appointed.
Yeah, in my opinion, that position should be elected in, because of that fact, he's appointed by the county commission. In a sense, he's beholden to the whims of you guys sitting up there on council.
May I give you just a bit of information that may be interesting or may be informative? It is an appointed position, but remember that there are local audits as far as within internal safeguards that we have in Baldwin County. Number two is there are state audits and sometimes even federal audits that look at the expenditure. And let me say, in Mr. Locke Williams' presence today, that we have one of the best staffs, perhaps the best staff in the state or in America. And to verify that, as we go back over the last 2 years, the state auditors have not found not one sighting. There have been 2 years back-to-back running where we've not had any question by the state auditors looking at the millions of dollars that have passed through this county. And it's to Mr. Williams' credit by large measure. It's to the staff and to the standards that we have in place. And I'm not at all want to limit your time, but if you would stay focused in Baldwin County, I would be.
Okay, I'll do that. The reason I'm leaning back over to Mobile County because I touched on several issues there. A man actually died because of what I would consider poor funding. It was actually malnutrition at the jail, and I was actually beaten at the gate trying to go in. I'm still not allowed in there. The reason I bring this up is because I noticed also that your Baldwin County Cattle and Fair Association, I was at your last meeting. It's very confusing what you've got going on with that. I noticed it was $10 million allotted this thing to begin with. It was 7.5 from the Fed and 2.5 from the county and other sources. Now it looks like it was $15 million. Now, the reason I'm getting this is, I noticed that $300,000 is being allotted to that somehow or another. I don't know the ins and outs on this, but my issue with that is there's a 10-day lease tied to the purchase of 15 acres. Why wasn't that separated out? A 10-day lease should be separate from the purchase of 15 acres on that $300,000, because I think for valuation purposes for the future, it helps the public to see what's going on. That's just a point, a small point of what I'm getting to as far as having a complete separation of duties, as far as having the treasurer elected. And also, but my main issue is here today. I wanted to move to have a vote taken to stop the charging of inmates at the time they're incarcerated, and also to have something done maybe to make sure there's no loose controls on the accounts of the sheriff's department, to make sure that funding is available that houses inmates so they don't have to keep these cycles of poverty. But you know, Alabama has a history of slavery, and what they're doing is creating indentured servitude. It's repulsive, and I'm from the Southeast, and you know, this my history as much as yours. And I want to retire here, but I want to make sure that something is done about that. Is there any way I can get a vote taken on that?
Without me validating or attempting to contradict anything you said, Mr. Brown, I share your concerns, because if being broke were grounds for being arrested, I believe I'd have been locked up some time ago.
These men are extremely poor, though a lot of them have no education. They come from the bottom rungs of our society. By charging them money, you're creating cycles of poverty and indentured servitude.
But what I just said was intended for a joke. I'm not sure if it's
It was not funny whenever you maybe know what goes on, but then I actually saw where men were actually becoming emaciated in Mobile County Jail. That was back in 2001. The Sheriff Jack Tillman was terminated this year for that fact. And he actually had close to, I think, close to about I know it was over 350,000, I think, get put back to side.
And that's not the policy in Baldwin County, because the money coming in here in the county does go to the inmate food fund, and that's by agreement. There's an old law that's still out there in the state of Alabama, like a commission law, like justice of the peace used to earn a commission.
Yes.
And unfortunately, several sheriffs, as it appears and as has been reported, through the years have taken large sums of money, that amount of money. Now, we do know that it went through the courts, and we do know that the former Sheriff Jack Tillman was held accountable for a letter of commitment, which he committed that the money would be made public, but later claimed it would be for personal use. So that's history, but it's not Baldwin County, I may say here. And let me do this. Let me apologize if my joke is inappropriate, because I'm not making light of this.
Yeah.
What I am saying is you're making some pretty strong statements that I personally will evaluate and ask staff to do that, but when you come in and say that it's indentured service, that's a pretty strong statement.
Well, the reason, I guess what I'm asking, I know for a fact that they're charging inmates money for the time they're incarcerated. I know some of the inmates over there do not have the money to pay for that. They're getting picked up again and arrested, and they're going back to jail. So it's not solving the problem keeping people out of jail. They haven't committed another crime. They're on the bottom. They need help to get up, not to keep getting kicked down. I guess what I'm asking is, we would have a law or a vote or something to stop it. And I said, I believe there's probably, like you were saying about the Sheriff Jack Tillman with excess funds, they were taking excess, what they considered excess funds, but I don't believe the Sheriff Department should have control over that much money. It should be controls of the accounts from the accounting and finance side.
It is in Baldwin County, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. Also, since I'm standing here, I heard there was an accountant position open in Baldwin County. Is that true?
Well, I'll have to check the personnel, but there is a process as far as applications.
No.
And, if you know anybody that'd like to.
Actually, I've been in semi-retirement since working for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in 2001. Actually, got left in 2000. There was a attempt on my life in 2001. And for some reason, some people say, well, he must be nuts. There was a regional director who claimed who committed suicide in his office in San Francisco, the FDIC, in the early 90s. Now, I survived and kept on my life in 2001. They call me crazy if they want. I'm standing here. My point is, I've been in semi-retirement. I'm looking to go back to work. In a way, that was my joke about working for Baldwin County. I do not know. I might just run my own business. But the main thing I want to do is try to get some funding for jailhouse inmates so they're not that cycle of poverty. I want to be proud of the county and the region that I'm from here in Alabama.